The last video on hair I did wasn't narrated, but hopefully it showed what I was thinking. And that was just me going through and trying to figure out ways I can simplify your high-res hair geometry into something that we can bake down to a low poly object. And I think the first question that we need to ask ourselves is what style are we trying to create this hair in? Is it something that's very like finely layered with a lot of feathered, very soft strands, layers of strands? It's kind of like the Final Fantasy look, or are we doing something a little bit more stylized, where it's a little bit more chunky? Right? Are we going to do big pieces like this? And then once we figure that out, we need to figure out what our poly count is. In this case, since you're just learning the ropes on how to create a character, I'm not going to be too strict on the poly count. In fact, we're going a little generous with the overall budgets. In this case, it's going to be like 1K for the head and 1K for the hair, and then we can downsample if we need to later on, right? But let's just go forward here, and I think maybe it's hard to tell you exactly what you should be doing because I think really it's going to be a trial and error process. Um, you're not going to know for sure like how good one solution looks over the other, right? But if you watch the other video, you'll probably notice that it took me way longer to create these than it did to create this. Right? This was basically me going in and let's show that. And basically, I duplicated each of these like big hair chunks here, and I removed the support edge loops from the ZBrush insert mesh. And that process was a little bit more painful than I wanted, just because the way the edge flow doesn't terminate to a point, so it circles back on itself, and that makes it a lot harder for me to kind of just remove edges and call it a day. And so those took a while, and then these smaller ones here in the back, I think I just duplicated those, and it simplified it even further, where I took out the bottom plane, thinking that I probably don't need that thickness, and we could probably get away with just duplicating this and flipping the normals, and that would be our back face for this hair. And then finally, going through the bigger chunks of the hair, and then I made those surfaces live like you're used to with the other retopple tools, and then drawing out the quads to get this. This is still a little inefficient, but we can be pretty generous right now. I mean, I think I would probably get rid of that or something, but in all honesty, I would probably work within the combination of these two here for this hair, where we're still working on planes, and I'm faking the thickness here by having this little lip to it. And then if we look at the original hair itself for those two pieces, and I do a smooth preview on all this. That lip should bake down, I think, pretty well, and then you can kind of get that edge, but then so you get a fake for how thick it is, and then we don't have to have the polys internally to sell that as well. And other notes on this hair in general is let's take this low poly here. I'm gonna switch my channel box. Let's make a new layer. We'll call that hair low. Turn that off. So now we're back to our high poly here. What is this? Let's assign this. And I'm going to name all this to be extra clean. And I'll add that. It's oops. There we go. And then for all of these, let's go ahead and I think I might have messed up. Maybe I didn't. I'll have to double check what I did here. I'm gonna call this so if you notice the way I name my layers too, usually it's like a high and a low. They're abbreviated. They're not HAGIH and they're not LOW. there are two letters, and I'm keeping them the same number of letters just to keep this short and simple. Turn this on again, and I guess I did manage to screw this up. Somehow, maybe, what did I do? Oh, there it is. Alright, so that I parented to the head by accident. Let's put this back here. And then I'm going to assign this to that hair group. No, hair layer. Okay. A few notes though. I think this process should be self-explanatory. Maybe I'll just go through it again. Just I'll narrate it, and so let's pick this one again. I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to duplicate this. I'll remove these selected objects just so I have these two by itself, and I'll turn on the head. Let's put the head here. Oops, and then there's I think something from your eyelashes, and then I'll put this back here, and we're just looking at the hair now. Okay, so really, let's just go back to modeling toolkits, and I will make this live here, and let's draw this out. And I'm just gonna tab move these around. Oops. Instead of drawing the quads out. And once I get something, I'm gonna straighten out this just so that when it does, if I simulate this or if I have some sort of a joint system that controls it, it'll deform a little bit more as I expect it to, because then the edge loops are all straight. And then I'm gonna go back and this oops, and then let's slide this all the way up down, or just make bigger sweeping motions here, and then I can control click to add those edge loops, and then we'll kind of continue this way. What's quicker? I'm fiddling with this. Probably if I had just drawn the dots, I think that would possibly have been quicker. But that's just like, it just sometimes feels more tedious, which is why it feels slower, but it's probably technically faster. If I'm having trouble drawing it, maybe I will, during that quad correctly, I'll just put it down, rearrange it, and then that should give me the room to build this rest of this out here. And then I can cap that later, or triangulate that later, and maybe just kind of relax all this. Alright, so I kept this a little bit simpler than the initial run, where there's like a slight lip, or I think I carried it all the way down to here, and I mean, I guess I can do that right now. It's not a huge deal, but I mean, I think you're used to how this process works, so this shouldn't be a big surprise to you. So let's get rid of that. What's going on here? There we go. And spin this around, make sure we're good. But for the sake of convenience, and I'll just make this a little bit more simple. I'll do it in the more traditional sense of just having this as a plane here. Okay, I'm noodling with this too much. And so I'll do kind of the same thing here. And oops, let's undo that. Make sure to turn off the live. We'll turn this on here. And then I'll do a quad draw. And then we'll resume that same exact process. Since this has a lot of cool planes to it, maybe I can just reuse or just follow those planes when I create this low poly object here. And then I'll just match everything as I need to. And then maybe we'll cap this down here. Not cap it, I keep using the word cap for some reason. I think even without looking at that last hairpiece, maybe this is looking a little uneven as far as how divided it is, but that's okay. I'm just gonna do this is mostly for demo than it is for like a final product. And let's find some way to terminate all this. Yeah, something like that. If it doesn't work, sometimes I'm just finding a way to do it in here in Modeling Toolkit, and if I need to tweak this, maybe I can just make it like a flat plane and alpha out that little piece. Then that's pretty easy for me to do. For now, I just want to stay within this toolkit, keep my life a little bit simple. And there we go, we're almost done. I'm going to move some of this around, try and get this to what's happening here. There we go. And how this inserts into the head, that's not a terribly big deal. So maybe I'll just slide this over, kind of get it to line up better, and then after that, we'll like add some more edge loops. And then I can relax as I need to. Move this to match the topology of the high res. I think I'll add a few more. Instead of going with that, let's go back to regular modeling techniques here. I'm going to add, edge ring splits, and then I will edit edge flow and kind of fix the curvature of everything. And since we have this object or the original high res still live, I think this should still be conforming to that surface. So this is making my life easier. I don't have to worry about the relax brush going overkill. And now I'm going to turn this off. I'm not worried about this flying off because I think maybe we will just stick to like an alpha solution instead of keeping it a solid chunk. But again, that's something that you're going to have to experiment on multiple projects. Like how exactly do you want to create your low poly hair, and that's going to take a while to learn. So I'm going to simplify this because again I'm going to call it a hair plane solution, and I'm going to get rid of some of the stuff I did earlier. But then at least here now I can even some of this out and kind of spread this, and then spread this. So that's how I would do this, and then you know, I'll go through that process. And as far as like planning out how to do this, since I think a lot of your hair pieces are kind of the same brush, what we could do then is use the same. Let's hide these. I'm gonna unparent that in the group here, and then I'll hide these. What we could do is we could duplicate these and put it around the mesh. So maybe really what I'm looking at that point is if we look at the UV texture editor, and then let's say I planar map all of this, and then I go to unfold that, and I unfold this. You know, you could just, with this hair, pick out a few of the major masses, and then maybe just do three of these, and then you have them as separate texture pieces, and then you can just duplicate those same three around to create this volume of the hair. And then so you'll have like 3 chunks just for this, maybe 1 chunk, 1 UV island for just these 2 strands here that pop out, or these both can be uniquely mapped. That's not a big deal, but that's how I would approach this. And then one final thing is with this hair, I think what I want to do right now is just turn this off, turn this off. I'm going to start separating this out into layers just for my own organization and me trying to figure out what is the best solution, right? And how do I arrange the UVs on this. So let's group this here. We'll call that layer 1, or top layer. Let's do layer 1. Let's do 1, 2, and 3. Hide that. This could be, let's say, move this down here, and then I'm going to rearrange this just so we know for sure what's on top, what's on bottom. This is kind of going to go under, so this will be layer 2 right here. And let's turn it back on. Okay, cool. This probably doesn't need to start that high, so let's move it down, move it forward, and I'm going to center that pivot point, which is under modify. Where is the center pivot here? I just have it as a shelf button. Alright, I'll explain why I'm doing this in a second here, but this does relate to what changes we might need to make here. I'll group this, we'll call that layer 2, but maybe I'll add a few more here, and then this one, just so there's like no bald spot popping up in his head. I'll add these, parent that. Yeah, so if you're curious to how I'm doing this, you could either just select a bunch of these here, middle mouse click and drag into that group if you want, or you select those, you control and click on the group and hit P, the parent, and then now they're all in the same group here. So this is like layer 3 or layer 2 here, and then this one, we probably don't even need this, so I'll get rid of it. And then again, or maybe, you know what, let's try and reposition it then. Maximize the amount of layering you have. Here, like that, and then we'll center this and go this way. Alright, something like this, and then these will be our layer 3. So I'm going to leave these side ones, we can call it like side layer or whatever, but that's not as big of a concern. The reason why I bring this up is in a second here. I'll call this layer 3. So it's basically top layer, middle layer, and bottom layer. So if I go in and go turn this on, usually in a hair like this, I'm not really expecting it to go to layer this way. I think it is a little unnatural that it's this much higher. Like given how much layering there is and given how much volume the hair, the fact that it gets so long in the front and short in the back at that top layer is kind of strange. So really what I would recommend is with this on, I think the easiest way to adjust all of these at one time, I think I'm going to put this back on. I'm going to readjust this. Let's put this back on layer 1. So layer 1 here. And maybe I'll hit F9 to go into component mode so I can adjust the vertices on all of these at the same time. I'll select this area here. I'll hit the B key to turn on the soft selection, and then we'll kind of move this around. But see how it's not affecting everything else? I'm going to go to my attribute editor, or I'll hit the, oops, what am I doing? The tool settings, which is this hammer button. We'll go to the soft selection and change it from surface to volume. And now when I do this, wait, why is it global objects? I don't really want, volume should be doing it. Why is it not doing it? Maybe because they're all separate objects here. Okay, well, I guess this works here. But I want to make this kind of the same general length. Oh, and I'm adjusting the size of my soft select by holding on B and left click dragging. I'm kind of moving this around, making sure that this is all like the same. Like that top layer should be kind of the same length overall here. Maybe I can then grab these, and now that we made it longer, maybe I pushed it out. That pushes it out depth-wise too far, so I can pull it back, make this skull look a little bit more natural. I'll switch to layer 2, and maybe we can just shift this some more. And this make layer 3. I'm gonna basically take it to where the bottom pieces of the scalp are, where you have it here. And let's go back. I'll hit F9 to do the component mode vertices of all of these. And I think I'm going to actually rotate it the other way. Something like that. Maybe not on this here. And maybe not on this one here. But for these, I think what we could do is just rotate these. So I'll take that smaller, because what I'm trying to do is like a more gradual transition. And I'll take this higher, and then I'll rotate again. And then let's take it really small. And then I'll kind of reverse that curve a little bit. You could do this as a, after you're done. So actually, yeah, look at this side, and don't look at this side so much. This side, maybe we just need to grab all these and slide this up here, and then I can hit, yeah, so this adjusts it so there are no bald spots. I can take layer 2, and then we can again, I'm going to go to face mode, and then I'll double click this and select the entire shell, and then I'll drop this down just so there's no trying to hide all the bald spots here. And this is what makes hair so tedious, is now just so I know what I'm looking at. It's I want to do a select objects here. Let's go to the hypershade. I'm going to make a new Lambert. Or what I could do to make that faster, I can just have these two selected. I can do a right click here. It can do assign existing or assign new material, and then I'll make a new Lambert, and then this will allow me to change this color, and this is like blue or something, just so I know where all my bald spots are. Oh, so there's also, you have that underlying thing here. That's okay. So what we can do is also we can UV map. You can retopple this as part of the head, and it'll sit in its own UV shell here, and you can just do like a take that as a darker color of the base hair, and that should help you get rid of or not have to worry so much about these bald spots. But it would be a good idea just so you get the general volume of the hair correct. I'm going to turn this on, and this should allow you to move it around. And move this, move that, and then I'll switch to face mode and do the entire shell. And I'm going to position this here. So again, this is going to be very, very tedious, this entire process. But the good news is I think you can more or less retopple. You can rely on those same few shells on that top layer here, and then for like layer 2, maybe I will combine all of these, and then I'll retopple one shell, like just one giant piece, and then kind of like we do a live surface here. Okay, so let's I'm gonna duplicate this, then we'll do a combine on it. Right, we'll make this a live surface, and then let's go back to modeling toolkit. Let's click on, I'm going to isolate, where, no, let's not isolate it. So let's, basically, I'm going to treat it like one giant plane here. So let's say, let's take this down, you know, like this basically. I was getting confused because I have so many layers of stuff right now, but yeah. And then you would just have it a layer like this. So you have a lot of like, you'd have the most detailed individual planes on top. You'd have, they create these side ones, maybe just consolidate them down to like one plane again, like this, something like this, and then the last plane, that last group, this bottom group right here, same thing. Okay, I think that should be enough to kind of get you going and ready to tackle this hair. Again, it's going to be a lot of work at cleaning things up, making sure that you're not having like baldness holes everywhere in the model. But the good news is that these have enough divisions that you can just smooth it in Maya. So you probably don't need to adjust this in ZBrush anymore. And then we can just stick within Maya, adjust the high poly, make it low poly, and then start UVing these. Cool. Hope this helps.